All right, so here's the follow-up to my first video on the Venus retrograde cycle. A lot of you watched that, and so this second part is some things that I wanted to clarify and really get a chance to talk about, because we're going to go beyond the introduction to the Venus retrograde. We're going to take a deeper look at what that cycle is and that sacred geometry that I introduced in that last episode. Now, with this being started, I got the cover for this. It's my band-hammered cover. I'll explain a little bit of that later. And let's just go. Let's just talk about this, because what I really want to discuss is I want to discuss this beautiful mandala here. Now, that mandala is not a mandala like, that you do. You could do it in sand and stuff like that, but that is the actual pattern that Venus and Earth make as they dance through an 8-year cycle. And that's kind of fantastic, isn't it? It really is. It's just amazing just what that geometry looks like. And we're going to get more into what's behind it, but that's just there for you to just go ooh and ah and appreciate. Now, that's because of the ratio between Earth. Now, I explained this in the last one, and I just want to go over this just so you know. Somebody sent me one of a curled up cat, proportions to it, where it went along that 1.618 of the golden ratio. Now, the ratio of the orbits between Venus and Earth is 1.625, so you can see how close that is to that golden ratio. It's a really amazing coincidence, and the ancients were able to actually track this, and because that retrograde occurred 8 times, they had an 8-pointed star that was associated with Inanna/Ishtar in the ancient Mesopotamian cultures. That captures it really, really carefully, right? Now, sometimes that 8-year cycle can vary by about 2 degrees every year. So it'll start in one sign, and it'll start going backwards. It goes backwards, kind of like the nodes of the moon through the signs. And we'll get into that too. I do have some degrees and dates and stuff for you. Now, there's also the pentagram of Venus, and that's where the 5-pointed star comes in, because there's 5 contact points that are superior and inferior conjunctions. And this is where the real magic of Venus happens. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, because honestly, what we really want to talk about, not necessarily this, because this is the mythological background, because when Venus is conjunct with the sun, she disappears from the sky, and she goes from being the morning star into an evening star, or vice versa. Now, this is considered to be, by the ancients, a descent into the underworld, because she disappears from sight. And you'll find that the myths are full of those. Now, Mercury has the same kind of connotation in the Greek world as disappearing and going into the underworld, as does Venus in the Sumerian cultures, and also the whole myth of Isis. Isis is associated with Venus in ancient Egypt, and that's also considered to be kind of like a descent into the underworld as well, because she had to revive her dead husband Osiris. Now, the astronomical that's the astronomical part of it, right? Because it's that whole illusion thing. Venus does not go retrograde. It's just that the orbits of the planets take them in such a way that Venus begins to appear to be moving backwards in our sky, and then she'll move backwards all the way to the sun as the Earth tends to separate, right? And then as they get into another relationship, then that will appear to be normal and moving forward again. Venus only does this about every 19 months. So we have some separate, because those orbits are so closely matched, right? The year on Venus is 224.7 Earth days, whereas our year is 365.25 Earth days. So you can see how they're kind of chasing each other around, not quite catching up until Venus, Venus will eventually catch up, but they maintain that rate. So it takes it 19 months for them to catch up to that. That underworld part of everything is what we're really interested in, because we're interested in that moment when Venus totally disappears, because that's what the sacred geometry is actually based upon. Now, there's my fascinating surreal cover. While we're talking about this, right, Venus appears to be sleeping here. And when Venus disappears from view, she's conjunct with the sun. And she comes out with new purpose, new meaning, new everything. She slows down, comes back to the sun. Now, astrologically, retrogrades are periods of time, are times of renewal and recommitment. Now, Venus signifying and representing love, material stuff, money, art, Taurus things, right? Taurus things, Libra things, beauty, balance, charm, justice in some points, right? Yeah, justice lies sleeping there, that's for sure. Now, that painting, that was my original cover, and that's the one that got deemed inappropriate. It was on display at the Worcester Art Museum, and I saw it that right before I recorded that episode, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool, Venus sleeping. I like that. I'm going to use that for a cover. I took out my camera, took a picture of it, bada bing, put it on there, put my head over where it's at on the picture, and just called it a day. Got an email saying, hey, this is inappropriate. I was like, really? It was in an art museum. Okay, I guess not. So it was on display at the Worcester Art Museum in Massachusetts, and it was an exhibit featuring the nudes at the Tate Museum in London, from London, England. It's called Venus and Dorme, Sleeping Venus, and it was painted in 1944 by Paul Duval. And it's a thought-provoking, surrealistic piece. It's from the Surrealistic School that is a commentary of 1944 in Brussels, Belgium. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about our sacred geometry, because this is really what we want to talk about. This rosette actually should have the sun right about where that arrow is at, right there. And the sun would be going around, the planets are going around the sun, but in relationship to the sun, they're going to dance, and the dance that they do will actually bring us into these relationships. You can see where we were at in 2023 and where it came to be in Gemini in 2024, and then we moved from Gemini into where we're at in 2025 here in March of 2025. Now, this date right here, we're going to talk about this because that's retrograde begins as the Earth and Venus start moving, right? It's about 224.7. So if you were to find that on the wheel here and you were to estimate the times, you would be able to see where that orbit would take Venus right there and then the Earth in relationship to it. So when it gets to a certain point here, like, say, for example, as we were coming in from 2024 to where we're going to be at in 2025, just about at that degree mark from this point, which is right about there, is where we would start seeing Venus slowing down as she would start passing the Earth, right? The Earth, it would pass, because that superior conjunction is with the Sun. It's not between the Earth, but it's between the Earth, the Sun, and Venus. Now, on the inside, those are the inferior conjunctions, because the Sun would be outside, right? So Venus is actually between the Sun and the Earth. The superior conjunctions are when Venus is further out in her orbit, and that's when the Sun is between Earth and Venus. So now, right now, Venus would be at her closest point to us, which what we found with Mars was quite considerable, right? I think Mars was 65 million miles. The closest point that it did come was another point in the orbits, because the orbits don't naturally match because they're elliptical, right? I would have to actually look up and see when the last time Venus was actually at her absolute closest to Earth. But I can tell you right now that in this current cycle, this is the point where Venus is closest to the Earth at when the retrograde begins. That's exactly what it is. It's when the retrograde begins is when they're at their closest point. All right, so, okay, let's talk. And that might not actually be true, because I think Jupiter had a different point and Mars had a different point in the retrograde. So the closest point is somewhere in between, because the retrograde starts, they start moving in, and it's not really like, boom, they're close. No, but we know that they're close, and we know that their influence is stronger when the planets are in retrograde, because they are actually closest to the Earth. Okay, now that I got that out of my system, let's move on, and there's our rosette again. So here's some dates for you, okay? We're talking about the inferior conjunctions. This year in 2025, it's March 22nd. It's at 2 degrees of Aries, okay? Now, I told you what my personal story is. I'll repeat it again because we got to go back to 2017, that last conjunction that we had with the Sun and Venus being in Aries, and that happened at 7 degrees Aries. So we got 5 degrees difference in the last 8 years. And that's pretty much when I began doing daily-astrocat.com, the website. Now that we're starting to take off and strengthen, I'm totally recommitted to this, and this is why I'm putting out these kind of videos now, as opposed to fabulous talking cats that are talking like this and going, oh my God, astrology is so cool. Yeah, no, not happening, right? Now we've got some serious astrology going on. We are really into it. We're digging into it. And this is going to take me for my next 8-year cycle, right? Okay. In 2009, there was another 8-year cycle, and I did this because that was still at 7 degrees of Aries, okay? It takes it that long to move, right? I go all the way back to 1977, where it's in 16 degrees of Aries. So take a look at this list. You really need to just look at where the progression is. It's 2, 7, 7, 9, 11, 14, and 16. And that's back in 1977. So that is roughly 40 years ago, basically, okay? So and it keeps on going back from there. The things that happen when Venus is retrograde, now, we got some things that are pretty cool because we have some personal things. It's a personal thing for me. So I happen to really, just reach out and branch out and really start beginning some new things, new artistic things, right? 2001, I had a business that had started going down. I finally was out of it. What did I do? Started writing more music, started performing more music, started playing more music out. Very Venus retrograde thing, right? Very much like the astrology thing, just taking what I'm interested in, taking my strengths and really moving forward with them, right? Now, as I go forward with the rest of it, you can see that there was some computer literacy that was happening from a personal standpoint. Shania Twain released her first album, Venus Retrograde, right? Huge star. Interesting, right? Started recording, released. The first Unix mainframe computer. Interesting. I like that one too, 1985. All right. So you can see that list right there. Now, we're going to just move right along. Venus is conjunct with the Sun on March 22nd at 9:07 p.m. And it's going to be conjunct at 2 degrees, 39 minutes and 5 seconds. Oh, I even threw the seconds in there. How do you like that? Of Aries. Okay. Now, Venus is going to enter Pisces on this guy's birthday, Thursday, March 27th at 4:41 in the morning at 0 degrees Pisces, obviously. And it's going to be conjunct Neptune by about 8 minutes. Ooh, that sounds like a party, right? Venus stations direct, the third part of this whole thing, on April 12th, which is Saturday at 9:02 p.m. at 24 degrees Pisces. Mars is at 27 degrees Cancer at this point. This is still a trine. I'm going to have to back up here for a second because what I want to talk about also is I want to talk about Venus is actually trine Mars for the second time now, once, twice, thrice, remember that, on April 6th. So that's a trine. So we're going to be coming around to it again. So then when Venus stations direct and Mars and Venus are still trine, Saturn is also trine too, and they're going to be going through it again a third time. So we got 3 chances, 2 chances in a very short time for getting things right as far as love is concerned and as far as arts and everything with Pisces, right? Venus in Pisces. Oh my goodness, she's in love. She's in love with Mars in Cancer, that's for sure. Oh, this Mercury dream? Yeah, that's yesterday, right? This is what Venus really wants. Venus and Mars belong together. Now, that being said, let's go back to that first day that we have here because this is going to be the 22nd. And we're going to take a look at this chart right here because that's when Venus and the Sun are actually conjunct and our petals begin. This is where the petals begin, right with that conjunction. Every point along that chart is a conjunction. I can flip back to it if you'd like. We can take a look at that because those conjunction points are where that beautiful geometry starts to form. That's where Sun and Venus are right between the Earth, and Venus is conjunct with the Sun so that she's lined up perfectly with it, right? A Venus eclipse, and yeah, right, okay. Nope, not close enough to the Earth to have that work optically. Although I do believe there are some telescopic things like radio images and stuff like that of planets passing in front of the Sun's face, particularly from the Earth, from Earth's point of view. Kind of a fascinating thing, right? So, what we're talking about here, that we're talking about Venus and the Sun being conjunct in Aries. What is that going to do for us? What does that drive do? We already talked about it a little bit, and what it meant for me personally as far as digging in and doing creative things and getting those ideas going and out there. Ideas, beginnings, things that we want to work on, right? It's going back to Pisces and then going to come back through. So it's going to carry that energy, that creative energy that they have right now, and Venus is going to take that into Pisces with her. Marry that with Mars' energy and drive and Saturn's determination and grit, no matter what's thrown at us, that we can come through and we're going to persevere. I've been doing this for 8 years, guys. Now I'm starting to get fairly decent at it, so that's the reason why many more of you are seeing these videos. As I learn to communicate better and I do the astrology better and make it relatable to you and you do it from an intuitive standpoint, this resonates more with more and more people, and this is what I'm looking to actually build upon moving forward with this most recent iteration of this Venus petal, this petal cycle. Now, let's talk about Venus in Pisces, okay? 0 degrees Pisces. We don't need to do that because we have that other chart. We can imagine where she's at right there. She's actually conjunct with Neptune. And with Neptune being considered a higher vibration of Venus, we've got the convergence of energy in Neptune's home site. This is going to be wonderful because this is where Neptune and Venus can really get together and just do some creative things, some dreamy things, some romantic things, right? You want to work on that next great romance novel? This is the time to do it. You want to do a fantastic painting? This is the time. We've got all of this stuff all lined up. We're here. We're at this point. We can increase and deepen our spirituality if that's what's important to us. And we can also develop our ties to others, or we can use that to fuel art also in this particular iteration. This is more about the Venus retrograde rather than this particular retrograde, so I just want to take that into account because the next time this happens, it's actually going to happen right on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. So that drive energy will be lost and it'll be more like the dream, right? It'll be more, but it's going to be a combination of two, the ending and the beginning. Just like the eclipse coming up, just like the nodal cycle that just changed. Very important concepts, but take this into account, okay? Because I want to ask you something because this is very interesting because the Venus is 0 degrees Pisces. This is a huge review of what we're working on creatively. Because Venus has already been here once. She's going to go once, twice, thrice. Again, Neptune. Again, Mars. Okay? Now, what is the purpose of creativity in your life? That's the larger question. What is the purpose of passion in your life? Another question. Now, take this into account as you review your questions of art, love, art, the ability to provide a good life for yourself and others, compassion, empathy, imagination, and spirituality. They're all part of this to review and revise. Once, twice, thrice. Remember, 3 times. You do it once. You get to go back. You get to review it. You get to go, oh, did I mess up? Did I not mess up? You're going to go back and think about it. Then you're going to come back and do it again. And you're going to do it again for good. Hopefully you learned. Hopefully you were able to review it, and then move forward. Go back and see what was happening on February 1st when Venus and Neptune were first conjunct. That's a great idea. What changed for you since then, and what would you like to improve upon? That's a good point to consider. Now, there's my graphic for the Venus returning to Pisces. Now, on the 12th of April is when Venus is going to go finally direct. Not direct. Yes, direct. Yes, she is direct. That's the direct. Confusing myself, right? Too many dates. Got them all strung together. Yes, she's going direct. Okay. I leave this stuff in here. You know why? Because it's fun and it makes it interesting. I don't want to be editing myself to death and go, No. I'd rather go and stumble over my own words and have you think it's funny and have you think it's amusing and have you think, oh, yeah, I do that too. It's a very humanizing thing, right? Hopefully. Anyway, if you want somebody that's perfect, I guess you got to just keep on moving on. If you want somebody that's me, then you're at the right place. On the 12th, we're going to see that Mars and Venus are still trine. And they're going to be moving into that trine. As Venus starts moving forward, she's going to be moving into that trine. She will catch up with Mars eventually. And they'll have a third trine. Now, this isn't about that time. I'm just telling you where the mechanics are for this. Venus goes direct at 24 degrees of Pisces. That's how far she's backed into Pisces. We're going to carry that Pisces intentions forward with Venus. And the beautiful part of all this is that Venus is going to once again emerge into 0 degrees of Aries. And that's where that beautiful Sabian symbol was of the woman emerging from the water with a seal embracing her leg. This is Venus reborn. This is us reborn. We're going to get a chance to come out of this and really just reimagine what it is that we want everything to be, not just the 3D stuff. It's what we want to do. What is our purpose? What are we doing? And this couldn't come at a better time with that nodal shift. It really couldn't. So we've got Venus trine Mars. We've got a little image for that. And look, I really hope you're blown away by as blown away by all this as I am. That imagery, that pattern, that beauty of that pattern, the regularity, the golden ratio being all wrapped up in it, the way the numbers just work out, it's almost as if it was by design, okay? There's some bigger things that are happening in the world, and I don't pretend to know everything, and I don't try to explain everything. There's a mechanism in all this that's both mysterious and beautiful. And look, it's as compelling and as mystifying as that Venus-Neptune aspect. Look, that might be a romantic fantasy, but it's also could be completely real. And we're at that point. The ancients studied and knew about this geometric pattern and ascribed this emblem, the star, all of these things, to Inanna Ishtar. We're really in an unprecedented time astrologically. Energetically, this is an evolutionary point. Young children, they're much smarter and much more capable now than they've ever been. Has modern life changed our brains so much that it's now hardwired into the brains of successive generations? This use of computer stuff, talking to machines, using AI? Maybe. If it is, then I'm for it, and you should learn how to do it, right? This is how we're going to advance. This is how we go beyond. This is how we don't get left behind. What becomes of our species ultimately will be decided by us, not astrology. It's done by us, for good or ill. The astrology points to an evolution in a higher existence, successively higher. As for Venus, I got to tell you, Gen Z might be onto something. Putting ourselves first, prioritizing us, Pisces, our feelings. Don't want to do that today. Venus is going to be moving into that in the next 8 years. You guys that are, suck it up, buttercup, the Aries, Venus and Aries, that's all done. That's not happening. All right? It's going to be more like how you're feeling, if you're in tune with somebody else, and that's what it's going to be. Now, then Venus leaves this current inferior conjunction in 8 years, this cycle, when she's going to be right on the cusp of that Venus and Aries thing. That's right. Suck it up, buttercup, no more. Now it's like, I feel you and I understand how you're feeling. Whether it's in Aries or Pisces depends on what part of the planet you're in or you happen to be in. Pisces is much more delicate, empathetic, and a nuanced place. Romance will surely bloom here, and boy, can those Gen Z folks use a bit of that. Thank you so much for joining me. Take time to like the video. I hope it was to your liking. Like, subscribe, and follow. I'm going to be putting out much more content that's like this, based like this. So keep an eye out for it. I appreciate comments. I love each and every single one of you. Please comment, subscribe, do all the nice things. Follow me. I've got a podcast every day, right here on YouTube or somewhere else, right? Wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. Make it part of your life. Happy astrocatting.